Welcome, everyone. I'm Danny Smith, Executive Vice President and co-owner of Color ID, and welcome to Color ID's latest Continuing the Conversation. Today's session is titled Life After ID Works for Transact Customers, Crossroads of Campus Identity. Now, this session will last approximately an hour, and we're going to also repeat this on April 13th at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So please, feel free to invite colleagues from your institution to join us as we'll repeat the information we shared today. A registration link you can forward will be emailed to you shortly. We're really pleased to have a significant number of higher education attendees joining us today from across North America. With about 200 people registering, it's obvious this topic carries a lot of interest, and we hope that you find the investment of your time a great value and encourage you to be interactive in this session. This really is an exciting and defining moment in our industry. Cloud-based solutions have dramatically changed our lives, both professionally and personally. In higher education, numerous modernized solutions that weren't available even a couple years ago have now arrived, and many, many more are coming. Specialized solutions for enhancing services, safety, and experiences for all departments and stakeholders across the ecosystem. And however, as we know, with change comes confusion, and now more than ever, this is the case. Universities will soon be compelled to make software and hardware decisions that will significantly impact them for years to come. And to that point, our objectives today are to provide you with a clear understanding of all the options available. We'll review Transact's approach to identity solutions. In addition, we'll also explore alternative options and solutions. As we now know, IDWorks is quickly approaching end of life, and cloud-based credential issuance solutions for card and mobile are now available. And Transact now offers their own proprietary integrated packages for card issuance, which is limited to Entrust adapted issuance, instant issuance ID software. It was formerly known as True Credential. And they also have a dedicated Entrust printers with embedded proprietary encoders. Well, the good news is there are alternative options and pathways. Cloud-based identity management platforms are now available, and these affordable, modernized, and easily deployed platforms provide connections that can distribute and manage credential information to the many third-party systems across your campus, including Transact. ID badge production and issuance is fully supported by these solutions with improved credential lifecycle management, data exchange, system reporting, and auditing. Today, we'll discuss the best-in-class identity practices and solutions. You've got questions, we've got answers. Questions like, where will we be in 2 years, 5 years, and beyond? And how important is the credential to the university, and why? And should a higher education institution own the key to the credentials used within the campus? Well, we'll answer these questions and more. But we do know one thing, in fact, is that we are at the crossroad of identity. And the decisions that you'll be making in the short near future will greatly influence your institution's future for years to come. Now, leading today's discussion will be David Stallsmith, the Director of Product Management for Color ID. And of course, many of you know David and you've worked with him over the years, as he has over 15 years of working with advanced identity solutions. He's worked with hundreds of universities partnering. Excuse me, I had a little microphone problem. So anyway, many of you know David, and you've worked with him over the years as he's worked closely with hundreds of university partners to promote the understanding of the complicated products and services that comprise our identification industry. He's contributed to the decision-making process at many universities as they've considered acquiring contactless, smart card, mobile ID, and biometric systems. And since 2006, David's presented annually at the NACU conference and NACUS's annual leadership conference, the European and Canadian campus card users conferences, and full-day identity summits hosted by some of the most prominent universities. Now, joining David today as moderator is Mark Deegan, Color ID's corporate marketing manager. In addition to managing Color ID's marketing department for the past 16 years, Mark also juggles the duties of account representative for some of our most strategic partners, both customer and corporate. And Mark and David's technical knowledge concerning advanced identity solutions is a testament to our commitment to the industry and a great example to the value differential that Color ID employees bring to our university partner relationships. Just a few housekeeping items will get started. We're encouraging these sessions to be interactive, so please utilize the question box to submit questions. And in addition to asking questions, there'll be live polls throughout, and we hope that you'll participate in those as well. Please note, Color ID's higher education team is listening in today, and they wanted me to convey they're here for any follow-up discussions. Just call or email your account manager. I apologize for the audio problem I had there a few minutes ago, but I think we'll be set to go for the rest of the presentation. Thanks again, everyone, for the privilege of your time. And with that, I'll turn it over to David. David?
Hey, Danny, thanks a lot, and welcome everybody. It's great to be here. Let's pause for a moment for IDWorks. A sad moment. It came in a box. It had a dongle. If you broke or lost that dongle, you were making a phone call and it was going to cost you $1,000. But you were going to get your software and use it again for another 20 years. In 2007, IDWorks 6.5 was introduced, and that is the latest version. 14 years is a pretty good run. Color ID sold over 1,000 licenses of IDWorks Standard during that time, and everybody loved it. It was easy to install. It works great. It looks old. It was funny, sometimes we'd get a call from somebody, I'm new to the card office. What is this old software you sold us? Well, and we'd put them in touch with our tech guys, and they'd say, you'll get used to it and you'll love it. And they did. It just works. And unfortunately, it will end someday, like real soon. On the 31st of 2021 will be your last day to buy IDWorks from Entrust. Now, we have some at Color ID, but before you buy it, recognize that in 1 year from March 31st, all support for this product will also end. Now, Color ID will continue to support our customers as well as we can, but as we all know, things like Windows Update cause a lot of problems, and you never know, you might just be one Windows Update away from crashing your ID software. So we knew it was coming. It's here. So we're just taking this time to seriously look forward and see what's available. As you can see, we have 7. I checked that this morning. 7 licenses of IDWorks Standard. Could ship today if you need it, or download. So IDWorks will be supported for 1 more year, then no more support. Again, you're 1 Windows update away from not having ID software, or maybe 10 more years, who knows? You know, stuff sometimes just keeps going. And but the one thing we do know for sure, and we hear this all the time and every year more, is that campuses need and expect a lot more from their ID card programs than they did 20 years ago. And IDWorks, as the premier ID software for higher ed, especially here in North America, has been integrated, customized, stretched to the limit. And we've seen some installations of IDWorks that didn't even look like IDWorks because so much had been done with it under the hood. I mean, it was really versatile. So the light at the end of the tunnel, if there is such a thing, is it's a good time. Pop your head up out of the card office, take a look around, and what do you want to do different? Because there are a lot of options out there, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get to what's actually available, let's define a few terms, because there are a lot of terminology there are a lot of terms in the ID card business that are used kind of interchangeably, and we need to make sure everybody's speaking the same language. So first of all, IDWorks was desktop software. It was made in the era of all desktop software. Word, Excel, Outlook, 1 license per PC, 1 printer per PC, and you buy it now and you own it, well, almost forever. So $1,000, $2,000, whatever you paid, use it all you want, and maybe you pay for support, and maybe you don't even do that. And that's just the way software has been. The one big downside to desktop software is it's not so great at connecting much. And a lot of times ID Works would be connected to just one table in a database. So there'd be a card production database, ID Works was connected to that, and everything else had to happen from there. So let's talk about credentials, because this term has a lot of different meanings. So I think of a credential as something that identifies me to a system. And it can be a number, it can be a card, it can be the thing that is carrying the number, which could be the card or the mobile phone. A credential could also be a certification for a certain kind of activity or service. And it often has a number associated with it that's related back to the certifying agency. It's just a very broad term, and in our industry even, it's widely used. I think, well, I'll try to be specific when I use the language credential, but hopefully it's clear what type of credential I'm using each time that I mention it. The ID numbers that are representative of the credential, whether it's the number that's on your card, it's in the chip, it's on the mag stripe, it's printed on the card, it's in your phone, whatever number you're communicating with a system, whether somebody's actually reading it and typing it, or whether it's an automated reader reading that, a lot of times those numbers are encrypted. On contactless cards for sure, like My Fair Does Fire, not Prox, that's not encrypted, everybody knows that. And mobile phones also have encrypted ID numbers, which leads us to encryption keys. And I've talked at length about this in presentations over the years, but just a quick review, encryption keys are what make the data, the ID number, secure on your card, in your phone. The reader and the credentials have to know the same key. It's a number. They have to know the same number. It's secret, and it's scrambled, mixed in a cryptographic algorithm to produce a new number that can only be decrypted if you know the secret encryption key. So if a manufacturer of cards, for example, makes readers and cards, and they decide to share a key with a particular institution, they'll call it a custom key. Various manufacturers have different names for these things. The end user now has that key, and they can share it with other manufacturers, and they can create just a network of different devices that can communicate, because they all know that same key that is controlled by the end user. But more often than not, these keys are proprietary and they're not shared with end users. And there's a reason for this. A company goes to the trouble of making a reader, they make cards for it. They put an encryption key in there, they guard it with their lives, because every reader and every card that goes out from that company is encrypted with that particular standard key. And if you just order their reader and you order their cards, the cards will work on the readers. Nobody knows that key except for like one guy back at the manufacturer, and even he's not supposed to know it. But that way everything works and the data is secured. The problem, of course, is that those cards or those mobile credentials or whatever it is that you're presenting only work with those readers that share that same key. So these are proprietary keys. In other words, they are the property of the company that made the cards and readers. And it's a good thing, because it makes everything from that manufacturer work together. But on the other side, it limits your options, because now you have to purchase your credentials and your readers from the same place. Now, the word reader, you'd think it'd be obvious, it reads things, and it does. It captures a number from the credential. Now, this is obviously in an automated sense, but it could be a barcode reader where it's actually an optical scan of a barcode. Whatever it is, captures a number, sends it to the system, and then the system in the back provides the access or service. The reader itself does none of that. It's transparent. It just gets the number. It does do one thing, is that it can decode the encrypted number and then send that to the system, which is what most readers with secure systems do. Now, also, a lot of readers can have those keys replaced. So if you ordered them with the manufacturer's standard or proprietary key, and then later you want to load your own keys in there, a lot of readers have that capability. Not all. and you have to find out if that's an option for you if you get to that point. If you think you want to maintain control of these keys, it's important probably in advance to discuss that with people who make the readers and the cards that you're considering. Mark, let's do a poll.
Hello, David. Nice to be here. Everybody, I'm Mark Deegan. I'm going to be helping out with the polls today. Please send any of the questions, comments through the chat line. I'm monitoring that right now. Let's kick off the first poll. What new solutions will you use this year for ID production and management? Please select all that apply. And we have folks who are submitting their responses. Thank you very much for being swift on this. We're going to let this go for just a moment longer as more votes are coming in, and we're going to look these over here after we got some more. Okay. Outstanding. Okay, I'm going to share the results. So 68% of today's attendees say ID production software and or hardware, 45% campus card system, 57% online photo capture, 32% are doing a contactless card technology, then 18% are looking to go to mobile ID. Dave, what do you think about these results?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Got to stop and just talk about that for a moment. So a lot of people have ID production software and or hardware. So maybe you got a new printer, maybe you got new software. Campus card system, 45%. So this crowd, a lot of you have just undergone a pretty good size change. And then a whole lot of people also picked up online photo capture. Thank you, COVID. That was a huge seller in 2020. And then mobile ID is about where we expected. A lot of people want it. A few people have been able to adopt it. So great, Mark. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Absolutely.
All right. So knowing that IDWorks was end of life and we were kicking it around, how can we help our university customers and the community in general that we work closely with and are very happy to be part of, think about all the various options. And a lot of schools that we work with or have worked with are Transact schools. And how are they going to handle this change from IDWorks? And so first of all, Transact and credentials. Transact gets it. Transact has been at work for a long time, integrating smart cards and working on mobile. I mean, going back to Felica, maybe 2008, 2009, working with Sony to somehow try to get mobile out there, and then introducing readers that could read Felica, and then shifting to MyFair not too long after that, and really has built a very nice ecosystem, that's a word I was looking for a little while ago, around contactless cards and mobile credentials. But when it comes to, so let's just back up a little bit history-wise. There are some gaps in IDWorks. Just step away from that Transact discussion for a moment there. And we've had these questions for years. There are things we want to do with our card production system that we just can't do. Is a comment we get all the time, and then the question is, how can we fix this? Because IDWorks printed cards, and it would read prox numbers. It had a prox plugin. It would connect to one database table, like we said, and data card printers, often if you're reading smart cards, had to pretty much be a data card printer. Transact introduced a plugin and a secure module for reading and encoding their data in the cards. But you could buy the software and you could buy the hardware either from Transact or from your favorite dealer if it wasn't a Transact dealer. Transact did have their own MyFair and DesFire keys that produce credentials that could only be read on Transact readers, which is their world, your world, assuming most of you are Transact users. So the one thing IDWorks was not so awesome at, as I mentioned before, sharing credential data with other campus systems. That was database work. So often IDWorks would pull information from the data, print the card, capture a prox number or whatever, and then send that number back to the database, and getting that from the database to all the other systems would be done at the database level. So people were writing scripts, setting flags and triggers, and flat files were very common and still are. A lot of flat file transfers out there. They're not always real time. Sometimes there would be an integration with a particular system, but really this is, these are 20-year-old techniques, but they work and they're reliable. So looking at the whole thing that's going on campus, schools got door access systems a long time ago. I went back on the NACU site and read or a CR80 site it was, and read a little history of the card industry. Door access was early in the campus card business, then dining, meal plans, cards with punches. Copiers appeared early, and there were copier systems. And those of you who had contact chip smart cards for a long time because they worked on your copiers, and that was how you had to pay for your copier system. Point of sale transactions. And then around that time, the campus card system and several of them appeared on the market, and they were ready to help schools manage credentials and payments around all these different things. And of course, it's a card system, so had to do card production, and IDWorks was sitting there just waiting to be either used or integrated. And so that's what happened. It was connected to the student information system, and maybe data was sent to the rec center. The laundry needed to know the numbers. Bookstores got integrated in there somewhere. Lock systems, ASA for Transact especially was an early winner. The Persona system was integrated, and that data was shared, and cards would often open residences very soon after those cards were issued. And then kiosks appeared on some campuses, sharing data with the library, residences for visitors, and other things that went on there. Parking is pretty resistant, actually. We've talked to a lot of schools, and they say, man, we wish we could get our data to the parking system without having to email it. And then in this last year, the 2020s photo upload, as we just saw, has gotten huge. Off campus has been big for a while. Connecting to the resource planning is important at some schools. And then really late 21st century products like loyalty programs, mobile credentials, at which Transact is an ace. Biometrics also really strong here. Yeah, mobile apps, which is exploding. How in the world? I look at the campus systems, I think, how are they going to keep up with all these mobile apps? And then debit and credit cards, which could in some way possibly even upend this whole thing. We don't know. I mean, what if schools needed to get off of closed loop and go to open loop? I don't even know. But there's so much going on here, and we've had so many conversations with schools where maybe they had a bunch of these integrated at one point, but then some broke. A machine was replaced, this happened, somebody left, that got broken, and it never was repaired, it was never replaced. So we've talked to a lot of schools that even though it may even be possible for these things to be connected, not nearly as many are connected as schools would hope. And it's just hard. It's hard to keep everything connected. Stuff changes. Even Windows is not helping. So it's a constantly changing, challenging ecosystem, and the campus card systems are working hard. Transact works hard to stay up with all that. But when you go to the Transact site, you look at their website, just like if you go to Color ID's site, you'll see what Color ID is paying attention to. What do we want you to think about when you come to our site? What would we like to sell you? When you go to Transact, it's kind of payments, which is enormous. Closed loop payments on university campuses, really large amounts of money and not getting smaller. It's very important, and keeping track of this in an environment where you're in the financial industry, on the fringe of the financial industry. There are all kinds of financial requirements regarding security and privacy. I mean, it's brutal. And so companies like Transact and Seaboard and others that are managing the financial payments that happen on a campus have a lot to do. But it could also explain why they have, they're not necessarily trying to support every ID production system on the planet. Transact is focused on their own flavor, and they've centered it around mobile these days. Now, we all know that the onerous requirement from Apple for nearly 100% compliance. In other words, all the readers on your campus have to be able to read this mobile credential, or you can't use the Apple Wallet. There's subtleties there I'm not even aware of because they don't share their legal documentation with me. But we know that it's a big deal for a campus to go all mobile in the Apple Wallet NFC way, which, by the way, in the Apple world, it's a payment type of function, right? Apple is guarding their NFC chip and reserving it for payments essentially. And so on campuses, you have to kind of think of it that way, even though you're going to use it on a Transact campus to open a door or to go into the rec center. The way that Transact has done this is good. That the mobile app interfaces with the Transact readers and shares a credential exactly like the MyFair and the MyFair DeskFire cards. So whatever card you're using, your phone acts the same way on the reader. And then Entrust software and printers are used to produce the cards, and those are only available from Transact. The good news is that Transact credentials and readers can work with many systems. So if you have S2 or you have Linnell or you have another system, you can put a Transact reader on that system and use the Transact credential and reader as the front end for the access to that system. So that's good. The world of Transact is focused on the credentials, both mobile and card, and on the readers that read those. Moving beyond that, though, if you're a Transact school, maybe you're not ready to go all in on mobile, or maybe you're not even sure that you want to pursue the full Transact solution. You're looking around, what else is out there? Well, Assure ID. Its latest version was introduced around the same time as IDWorks 6.5, so it's not very new either. It does work well. It's a lot the same as IDWorks, except different. The one thing that Assure ID does is if you do have any HID cards on your campus, it will encode them, iClass, CIAS, procs, and it will read them very well. That is its strength. HID maintains the essentially the card encoding SDK that's in Assure ID, and it'll work in HID printers, and it does a really good job. But it's just desktop software. It would be like replacing IDWorks, only gaining some HID card functionality. Another good desktop software is Card Exchange Producer. It's been out about 10, 15 years. It is on version 10 right now, and this company, Card Exchange, is very focused. They only make card making software. That's all they do. And they have a web version they've been producing in Europe, and a lot of large European universities use it for managing card program. And then they've had Producer, which is a desktop software. We've sold that to a number of universities and other kinds of enterprises. It has a lot of features. It's highly configurable. There is a nice network license manager, so you can have concurrent licenses, and it's very reasonably priced. It also is very good at encoding MyFair and DeskFire cards. Now, if you need to encode, not read, but encode CIAS cards, Card Exchange hasn't decided to pay HID that licensing fee to do that, but it is there in the future at some point if you really needed it. We get out of that conversation, but for right now, it's certainly the latest of the desktop ID softwares and the most configurable and feature rich. There are some other issuance options. Valid makes WebLink, which is a fully cloud-based ID production software. It's not too strong on reading and coding smart cards, but it does give you the cloud option for making cards. And then back on the desktop, a lot of schools use their access control systems to make their cards. So Linnell, Secure, Identicard, Vanderbilt, many others have badging modules, and they will make cards. The problem with that, of course, is that these are security systems, and sharing data from a security system database is not easy. So people who make their cards, for example, with Secure, have a hard time getting the data out of Secure and sharing it with other systems. So they oftentimes they have to run a report, which is a CSV file, and then they share that with somebody who uploads it manually into another system. So it's not awesome in most cases that way. The other thing is around reading and encoding cards access control systems. They're mostly focused on cameras and video and other things related to security. Making cards is generally not a high priority in access control world. I mean, they need them to open doors, but a lot of their development resources are being focused on other areas which people are willing to pay a lot more money for, and so that's what happens there. So printers, which printers are supported, which encoders and which printers are pretty mysterious. And so you can look at a sheet from a certain company and we support the following encoders and the following printers. Buy it and then find out, oh, that hasn't been supported for 3 years. So that is a challenge with access control systems, but actually a fair number of schools do use it anyway. Another really old software, EpiSuite, still out there, Vision IDMS, another desktop software. So there are a lot of products. Most of them are like IDWorks. So at this point, we get to Entrust AIIID, Adaptive Instant Issuance ID software, or just Instant ID, because AIIID is kind of hard to say. It was True Credential until very recently. And True Credential has been out 5 or 6 years, and it came out kind of rocky, like most software products, and it has gotten quite good. It is a web server model. It is very different from IDWorks. You install it on a web server. You can have concurrent licenses. You work on it through a browser, so you can use it on a tablet or a PC. And our testers at Color ID recently downloaded the newest version because now it has a new name. Oh, let's find out what's new with Instant ID. And their report was, other than the purple color, nothing has changed. So you have Color ID's experience now to confirm that Instant ID is True Credential, but it's purple instead of blue. But they have done a good job of keeping it up with new versions and improvements over the years, and we expect that will continue. It has, like I said, a web server base, and it is feels very different than IDWorks. It has entirely different workflows, just a whole different approach. So installing it and using it is just going to be a different experience than IDWorks. Not bad, just different. So if you want it, give it a try. We have it at Color ID. You can download it. Give us a call or just go to our site and download it, and you can try it out, see how it works. But it's a different animal. Transact logically follows on from IDWorks with Instant ID. So they fully integrated Instant ID and created a completely turnkey solution that now is only available from Transact. So if you want to go with Transact encoded credentials in your printer to work with your readers and work with your mobile credentials, whatever, you're going to need the whole shooting match, the whole kit and caboodle, there you go, from Transact. Now, it doesn't necessarily, so if you want everything to work together, and you will buy it all, the software, the printers, the encoding module in the printer, it will all come from Transact. They support the whole thing as a piece, and it works quite well. They do a really nice job with it. You just are going into full Transact world when you do that. Transact readers, like I said, they read the mobile credential numbers, the NFC, and they read the MyFair and DeskFire cards that you're encoding in your printers, in your Entrust printers with Instant ID software encoding. So many good features here, but it will be a hard system to exit or to augment with outside solutions. If you go in this direction, you will be well taken care of within Transact world, but you are going into a place where you will close the door behind you. Essentially, is how we see that, and we hear that from schools. We've heard people say, we don't want to go there. It keeps getting more and more restrictive in that regard. For some people, it's freedom. We write one check, they fix everything, it all works. And for other people, it's like, I don't know. Maybe I'd rather have some problems, but I have some control. So, typical life philosophy. How do you want to deal with it? Mark, I got another poll for you.
All right. Thanks, David. Okay, everybody. Here is the next poll question. When will your campus move to mobile ID? And just select one. And I wanted to say thank you all for submitting questions. I'm getting a lot come in, so I'm going to continue to build those out and get them ready for David at the end of the presentation to see if we can stump them. So thank you all. All right, that looks to be good. I'll flip this around so everybody can see. 42% of you say you just can't see it happening for mobile ID. 29% are thinking it's going to be pretty soon. 23% are looking at next year, and it looks like 6% are saying this year. So looks about half of you guys have it on your horizon, and the other half not so much. Dave, do you have anything to add?
No, that's really interesting. A lot of people just don't see mobile happening. That I think is surprising. But 52% next year or pretty soon. And we carefully word these to try to catch as many people as possible. Pretty soon, yeah, we'll get there.
Awesome.
Well, good. Well, let's talk about that because mobile kind of fits in. And thanks, Mark. I appreciate that. Moving right along, because if you're getting a bunch of questions, I need to leave time. So just, like I was saying, IDWorks had some gaps. And even when used in concert with an integrated one-card system like Transact, there's some problems. There's some things that it doesn't catch. For example, people who are not in Transact. How do you handle your visitors? Do you want to keep track of them? Do you want to give them access control cards? Do you want to send them emails when they arrive on campus, welcome, and send them an email when they leave? I mean, all the different ways that we interact with people. Temporary people on our campus are also maybe part of what we want to include in our credential or identity management, timed events, residence halls, conferences, academic summer programs. We get a lot of questions about that because they don't want to put them in they don't want to put them in Transact. They don't want to put them in whatever the one card system is. Another one is contractors, and a great example here from one school a couple years ago. We were talking to them. They said, I'm told, this is the guy at the card office, I am told that when a contractor walks in, looks like a contractor, says he's with such and such a company, I'm to hand him a Prox card. I take his name, and that's all I know about them. And they can keep that card for as long as they need it. And I cannot do anything about it. I don't even know, which person holds which card. There's just no system in place. Now you could say that's a policy problem, but on the other hand, there's no tool to manage the policy, even if there was. So that's a gap. Here's a gap. What about all the different kinds of credentials? Maybe you have several different kinds of cards. You have several systems that read these different cards. Here's one. When you decide to go to mobile, what if you have a bunch of locks by one maker on one residence hall area, and then over in another part of campus, you have a bunch of other kinds of readers, and you want to use mobile there, and they're not interoperable? Well, the cool thing about phones is you can put different apps on those phones, and you can have 2 or 3 entirely different credentials. You can open Allegiant doors with your Allegiant app on your phone, and you can open ASA doors with the ASA or HID app on your phone. But how you manage those? It's 2 different credentials. Do you have to issue them 2 different cards in your one card system so that you can track each card, even though they're only ever going to use mobile on those doors? So this is another credential that needs to be managed. And biometrics, an entirely different, often standalone system. Maybe you integrate the biometric system, maybe you don't. But if you're going to enroll people there, wouldn't you like to manage those credentials? What people get in, where they go, what that credential can be used for. And then reporting is always a big deal, because IDWorks was not awesome on reporting. It just didn't keep that much information. And people need to know who, what, when, where, why identities were created, why, when, where they were used, and when were they revoked. very important reporting that needs to go on. Another thing that happened that is hard, and we just came through this last year of remote card office. How do we verify people's identity? I mean, this is Cloud Card, which is actually uh, the underlying product. The Transact schools that have photo upload usually have Cloud Card, which is great, and it contains a way to upload a picture of an ID. This is pretty good way of verifying. There are even better ways, but at least it's a start. We have a photo of an ID. We can take a look at the photo they submitted, and then hopefully someday we cross their path, and it's not quite the same as actually touching the driver's license in the card office, but at least we did something to verify the identity that we just assigned in the system. So these are all things. IDWorks could not do these things. We've seen people get the SDK and do crazy upgrades and code writing to include them with IDWorks, but out of the box, IDWorks did not do this. So these are things ID software just doesn't do, and there are a bunch of other ones. I'm sure you can think of some too. So this is all taking us to a place where, what if you could just choose the best mobile ID system for your campus? What if you had a bunch of choices and you could pick the one that worked best for you? What if you could choose the best ID printing system for your campus that you're not changing everything. You just want to pick the better ID system because this one does something the other one doesn't. What if order ahead or payments system, even if you get down to the core of it, you want to swap out your payment system without worrying about whether it is connected to all your other existing systems. And that is what brings us to the concept of identity management. Like I said, we've been talking about this for a couple of years, where instead of the one card financial transaction system provider having the responsibility to also manage the identity across all these other systems, many of which are not financial transaction systems. Managing visitors is not a financial system, and you could question whether the incentive is there for that company to actually support that across all its users in the way that you would hope it would. But if you have a company that is focused on identity management, this is all they do, and they charge a small fee for connections, and they offer a range of connections, wouldn't that make some sense? So in this case, if you have an identity management system in place, and we're going to talk about what some of the options are, there are a number of them. It can take in data from the ERP and the student information system, or return data. I left out the arrows and the lines. They just kind of make me queasy. It, of course, would need to be closely tied to card production, especially since 42% can't see it happening. I'm sorry, that's mobile. 42% aren't going to mobile, so they're going to need to continue to produce cards. But down below, there's the campus card system. That could be Transact there. Not doing any less work necessarily, just having some of the burden of trying to support all these other crazy systems as part of its mission on your campus. It still has the whole world of financial transactions. It's still, if it's connected to some systems and it works really well, don't touch those. But if you're trying to get to your parking system and send prox card numbers over there, an identity management system could do that, or the rec center, or any of the other systems. And like I said, if you have multiple mobile credentials, that would be another thing. So another diagram, and many of you may have seen this at some point in the last year, but start with the identity management layer, and you go there to manage your identities, all the people in your system. That is connected to your SIS and your one card system and your access control system. Those are both consumers and contributors to identity data, which then can be sent to the card production system, to the third-party mobile or more than one mobile credential portal. And then from there, it will make sure that that data gets to all the different systems where you would either use a card or a phone. So the idea here is we're adding another layer to manage these identities. We call it identity management. Kind of brilliant, huh? How data moves. So I talked a little bit about this before. A whole lot of all kinds of institutions are still using ODBC drivers. They work fine until somebody moves a resource. Then you have to address it, and that works again. Passwords change, all that stuff. These work. File transfers are also, they work, but they can be laborious. We still hear stories of feeds that slow down a system every night because of all the data that's moving around a system. With the cloud systems, the RESTful APIs are much preferred as a way of getting data from one system to another. And when necessary, though, they can still do ODBC and file transfers. One system that does a nice job of everything we just described in identity management is Swift Data. And they have a product called Pinwheel. And this is a kind of unusual. It's an on-prem database, but they manage it remotely. They install it and they manage it. The cool thing about it is it has native connections to access control systems. If you have a couple systems that you're having a hard time getting data into to open doors, Swift Data may be something to consider. They are really strong. They've done the integrations with a lot of different, as you can see here, Persona, Genetec, Software House, Linnell, Honeywell. I mean, those are a lot of integrations. I think they have more now. And they will connect to other systems. They will manage this for you. They will help you build reports. Another company that we like a lot in the last couple of years, this is a very strong security backbone product built in Amazon Web Services on public key infrastructure, which for those of you who know a little bit about cryptography, PKI is enormous and in supporting all this. It's very strong on identity verification using a mobile device. You register the device, it verifies the liveness of the photo. It can support a lot of biometrics, connections, it'll issue cards, and it is a very fast-moving and dedicated team of developers that will do integrations. We've seen them do amazing things in very short periods of time, and they have a very nice platform. They'll provide one-time passwords, so if you're using Duo or Okta and you're tired of paying those fees and you want something that does a whole lot more than that and still provides a very secure OTP, multi-factor authentication, this could be a product that you would want to look at. Now, this could be a crossover to your IT security group, but it also is very strong on ID cards and smart card support. So great product there. And the last identity management piece that we'll look at is Card Exchange Cloud Suite. So the same company that had the desktop product we talked about a little bit ago also has this suite of cloud products, which are the controller, the stand, and the press. And the controller, as you can see, it's a database and it's in Azure, and it is very configurable. So everything here, you can load as much or as little data into here as you want, hopefully using APIs, but if need be, it can be a CSV file upload, whatever you want to do, and whatever is available. You set all the fields here. You will collect the photos here. You'll approve them. You'll make sure all the data is in place. You'll prepare records for card printing, for batch printing from here, and then you hit print from this. And it has a lot of configurations and can handle a lot of different connections to many types of systems. The companion is the stand, which is the self-service software. It's coming out soon in a mobile app, but even where it is right now, it's either a PC browser where it'll capture your photo on your PC or on your phone or on a tablet, and you can because it's a self-service portal, you can request a new credential for yourself or a visitor, and you can also replace your credential or report it as lost. And then the press, which is, if you were paying attention, looks very similar to the Card Exchange desktop software, which it kind of is, except it's only available through a cloud login. So you log in through the browser to this software that is sitting, it's essentially a thick client. So it has native support for the Windows drivers for all the ID card printers that you could use. And it supports a lot of different printers, Magic Card, Yeah, Matica, HID, Entrust, Niska. A lot of printers are supported by Card Exchange Press, and so it is a Windows client, but it is controlled through the cloud, and you can print directly from the cloud to the printer, or you can send it to the client, and it can be a print release environment where somebody goes to that and pulls the record and prints it. So the cool thing about it is you can put that client anywhere, you can print anywhere to the printer that's connected to it, and you can do that, as like I say, with print release. Card Exchange reports, because everything that happens in the system is recorded in the cloud, and you can get it out of there. Here you can see all the different ways you can build your reports as you want them to see. So that was all the Card Exchange Cloud Suite. And the last thing we'll talk about today is a product many of you may have heard of called Fargo Connect. Fargo Connect is a very powerful print management software based in the cloud. It works with HID printers. So, it is proprietary in that way, but it does such a good job that a lot of schools have found it to be worthwhile, and actually HID printers are pretty good. So on the left there, you see the ID management system. And so that would be Card Exchange, for example, is integrated, and I'll show you a list of a lot of other systems that are integrated. It has an online card designer, and it has a lot of different support, but everything's available through the cloud. It has here is the what you see when you log into the Connect portal on the cloud. You can see all your printers, what they're doing, what they printed, when it was printed, and there's also a card designer. Because Fargo Connect can even be connected to a SQL database. It needs something on the front end, because it is not designed to be a front end, but it has a connector so that it can connect to a lot of existing systems. Really the jewel of the Fargo Connect approach is this thing called a console, and it's a tablet-like device. It's networked. It is not Windows. So the nice thing about this is you now have your printer sitting on a machine that's not Windows, but it's built by the manufacturer of the printer to support that printer. And it knows all that's going on with the printer, where the supplies are. Every setting can be made at the console here, and then also everything at the console can be viewed in the cloud site. So if you need help troubleshooting a printer anywhere, you could call Color ID, and our guys will log in through the cloud portal and help you set your printer exactly right so it functions the way you need it to. But the console will support up to 3 printers, and you can also do print release from here. And integrations, like I said, very important part of Fargo Connect. Card Exchange Cloud Suite, which we just discussed. TouchNet is finishing up an integration. Secure is integrated. Linnell OnGuard is right there about to release it. HID Safe. Specs ID, for those of you who are familiar with that product from Montreal. CBOR has integrated Fargo Connect. Transact has not. Atrium also has. And then the Cloud Connect service, which would allow you to use Fargo Connect with a lot of different other interfaces. Now, if you're a Transact school and you think, man, I want Fargo Connect, how can we do that? Well, you could connect it to any of these listed integrated services, and Card Exchange would be, say, a great option for you here. So you could get Card Exchange Cloud, connect it to Transact, keep as many things connected to Transact as you want, connect Card Exchange to any other stuff that you want to connect it to, and connect your Fargo Connect to the Card Exchange instance in Azure, and you are printing in the 21st century. So, there are just a lot of ways to get way beyond what IDWorks used to provide, and is still providing. And people, we all got used to that. The world grew up beyond desktop software, the world of credentials and ID production, but we've all just continued to work with that because that was the main tool. Well, now the old systems are going away, and we have the opportunity to move in a new direction that will expand our range of options for managing identities across a wide range of systems. And here's the part, because we don't even know what's coming yet. There's stuff we don't even know. So anyway, that is all I have to say. And I think I left just a couple minutes for questions.
Thanks, David. That's a lot of great information. And you're right, we did get a lot of questions today, and I'm just going to start from the top and see if we can stump you. So good luck, David. Okay, first off, have you heard of Genetec? If so, any opinions on using that for ID issuance?
Yeah, Genetec's a great software. It's one of the new solid access control systems. It's cloud-based. I do know schools that use Genetec to make cards, and I believe they have an API. So you just need to, feel free to reach out to Color ID, and we'll walk you through your communications with Genetec to find out what can they do and what do you want to do. Maybe you only just want to get a prox card number or some kind of pre-programmed card number out of Genetec. Maybe they can deliver that to you, but if you go in that direction, are you limiting your options, or is that a good place to start? And then maybe if you want to expand later, you could add, everything we talked about today, you could add at any time. You can use IDWorks as long as you want. You can jump into Genetec, and then when you're ready to take a different, more broad approach in a few years, then you can do that then too. So, but I'd be happy to, me and my colleagues at Color ID would be happy to, I and my colleagues at Color ID, to discuss that with you in more depth.
Awesome. Okay, does Fargo Connect only work with HID printers?
The answer is yes. That is a yes. And it's just the way they approached it. That's all I can say.
Gotcha.
The answer is yes. They are good printers.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next up, is True Credential and Entrust Instant ID the same thing, you're saying, question mark?
Well, no, one has blue and the other has purple colors. But other than that, yeah, they're identical. It's just a name change.
Just a rebrand. Got it.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, next up, regarding Card Exchange Cloud Suite, is that solution ideal for large institutions only, or would our campus be a good fit for it? We only have 900 active users on campus.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be a really good fit because the pricing is available 0 to 500 active users, 500 to 1500 active users, and you only pay for the number of identities that are actually live and active in your system. So you pay a lot less. If you have fewer people, you pay less than somebody with 30,000. It's very reasonably priced anyway, because it's not trying to do everything in the world, and it doesn't have to meet PCI requirements. It has to meet privacy. It has to meet IT security requirements for sure. And your IT people will be, I think, pleased to see what it does provide in those regards. But it's managing identities. Really, what we're talking about is we have a database of people, and we're pushing ID numbers around. And it seems like, wow, is that all? Yeah, it's a simple thing, but there aren't that many products that really do it very well. And that's kind of the surprising thing. A lot of our headaches are because we're emailing and texting ID numbers. Put these 5 people in the parking system, So, but yeah, I think
Gotcha.
it's definitely worth a look.
Perfect. This is kind of a follow-up for that. So for desktop software, I know what to expect for the installation. How is a cloud-based solution different for installation, support, and maintenance?
Yeah, that's a great question. So cloud-based is, on the one hand, the software is already there, and you don't even have to upgrade it, right? They upgrade it for you. The question is, because you now have a lot more capability, you can share data with other systems. You can decide on business rules. You can add expiration dates. You can add extra roles. So things you haven't even had a chance or need to think about, but that have been problems in your business process because you just haven't had a way to deal with it. Now, the bigger part of these implementations that we're seeing is for the institution, after years of not paying any attention to really important details like roles, who gets to do what, and what if I have like somebody who's an employee and a faculty and a student all at the same time. Card Exchange can keep track of that, and so do you want to keep track of that? And the end, so some people are going to sit down and have a little meeting and say, here's how we're going to deal with it. That is the part of the implementation. So on the one hand, it's kind of fun. On the other hand, I mean, you are reviewing policy, and honestly, after all these years, it's about time. How are you going to go for the next 20 years? Probably. It's just good to do that. So after that, if you need some connections to existing systems, if they're in place with Card Exchange, you just pay the small extra fee for each connection. If it's not in place, then Card Exchange puts a developer on it, and within a couple weeks, that connection will be there. API connections do not take a lot of time unless somebody's not being helpful. If you keep sending somebody an email saying, can you send me your metadata, and they don't, then that kind of slows down the process. But the metadata itself is a known quantity. So yes, it does feel different. It can be done remotely, and but it is you're going to be doing more things. So you'll be thinking through more about what you want.
Terrific. Thanks, Dave. Okay, last one. Okay, we've got, I kind of added on to this question just a little bit to give a little bit better background. So within regards to products like Card Exchange, Firewall Connect, Assure ID, and everything, if they were to upgrade their Transact System Enterprise version and ID printing is broken as a result, will Transact support have to fix that, or do we have to contact you or the manufacturer of the software to fix it? So I think in this instance, they're assuming that Transact will still be continuing to print the ID cards when in fact that wouldn't be the case. Am I tracking that correctly?
I kind of missed that. So did you say they would have Card Exchange in this question?
Right. Yeah. So any of the new applications, Card Exchange or Firewall Connect.
Right. So pretty much, I mean, obviously there are subtleties that could escape my simple mind at this point, but if you buy the Transact solution with Instant ID and Trust Printers and all that whole thing, they're going to support that. If you buy anything else, then the people that you buy it from will support that, which hopefully is good news, because you would want to buy it from people that offer good support. The only thing that this would impact, the only way it would impact Transact is any data that you're sharing from that ID production system to Transact. And then you would, and it's probably in most cases as simple as an ID number, maybe an expiration date, a few things like that, a few bits of data, and Transact will need to ingest that data and probably charge you a fee for that, and then they'll support it. But really, it's just a data exchange that would be going on. Transact would not have any responsibility for the software or service that you bought from a third party. So choose wisely.
Yeah. And we just had one more question. I know we're extending our time a little bit here, but these are really good questions. So end user is currently using Genetec and have been using IDWorks for many years. So their question is, would moving to Entrust Instant ID be a path of least resistance since it's technically made by the same company?
No. I can actually tell you, IDWorks pretty much ran itself, and people had questions, they'd call Color ID, we'd help them out, but really mostly there weren't too many questions. We had a well, I won't go into that. The Instant ID is an entirely new product. It looks, feels, and acts entirely differently. You will probably end up redoing most of our. There's a template transfer tool, but I understand it's not as slick as you would want. So you'll probably end up redesigning your templates. It's not just a drop-in replacement. It will be very different. If you are at that point, feel free to call us. We'll be happy to walk you through that. We'll help you download it and support you on a demo version of this software, Instant ID, and then you can see what it looks and feels like yourself. We'd be happy to do that. And in the process, if you want to consider something else, we can also show you what those would look like. So, a lot of questions in that one question that we can answer in a follow-up.
Terrific. David, I have good news. You passed. Well done. Your part and my part are complete. So now we get to pass it back over to Danny. And thank you for everybody's time. Danny, take it away.
Okay, thanks very much, Mark. Appreciate it again, everybody. I know we ran over a little bit long. There's a lot to discuss. As David mentioned, Color ID takes a consultative engagement approach to our higher education partner relationships. And if you want to continue the conversation specific to your institution and what your options may be, and to take a deeper dive, please don't hesitate to reach out directly to your account manager. You can email us at sales@colorid.com. But, together we can work to create a future forward identity roadmap that supports your institution's objectives. It's just what we do. Again, I thank everybody for the privilege of your time, your attention, and on behalf of Mark, David, and myself, thanks again, everyone. Please be healthy and be safe. Goodbye.